This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Welcome, Talk Catholic, the website.com, your host, Tim Kilcoyne. No agendas here, just the straight and narrow, through Mary to Jesus, the Catholic faith proclaimed and preserved. Hope to see you here every week. TalkCatholic.com. It is the month of May, Mary's month. I'll be doing a couple of special shows on Our Lady, and we also have First Saturday Devotions, don't you forget. But now we're going to turn back to an interviewee, John Henry Westen of LifeSite News, who I had the double pleasure of interviewing just recently prior to Easter, and we'll get it started right now.
Hello?
Can you hear me?
I got you.
Wow. This is Tim Kilcoyne.
Oh, hey, Tim, how are you?
Is this John?
It is, John Henry Westen.
Very nice, John. Forgive my...
I'm coming through okay for you.
Yeah, it's very clear. This is a great moment, John.
Very good. Very good.
I am just getting familiar with new phone equipment, and this should have happened last year. I was down and out with pneumonia for most of the year. It was awful, and I almost hit the canvas for a 10 count, and I asked the Lord. I says, Father, if you let me live, I'm going to let it fly. In fact, it was a little battery-operated candle. And just as I said, I want to let it fly, doesn't the battery was dead the day before? All of a sudden, the light goes on. John, I consider this a new day at the 76 Retreat House in Kennebunk, Maine, which is my home, and it's part of an apostolate that I've always called Fairways to Faith Services. Yes, there is a little golf twist to that. We'll get to that later, I'm sure. But WQPH Radio is delighted to have you again, and we can spend the afternoon, John. But you can take it wherever you like to go.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
That's one thing I do ask all the time because I'm not sure where I'm allowed to go off in this.
Oh, no. I hope you had a chance to look at some of my thought-provoking questions.
I did. I thought they were fantastic.
Oh, thanks.
Oh, really? Okay, you want to go there.
Well, that scares the daylights out of most religious educators around these parts, I'll tell you that. But you're welcome. I was thinking, before we tackle some of the theological points there, maybe you could bring us a little bit up to date, because I remember in our last interview, in fact, we were talking very much about this crackdown by Big Brother on free speech, and where is that right now relative to LifeSite News, and how is everything in this climate of ours?
Well, we're just getting hit again. So I think, when did we speak last? Was it 2021?
It was 2021.
Yes. So believe it or not, they're doing the same thing again. At least it seems to be. So
really,
we had 315,000 subscribers, and we were growing by leaps and bounds in 2021. And then YouTube just killed us. And Facebook and Twitter. But the weird part was we had this really small channel in my name, the John Henry Westen Show channel.
Yeah.
And we built that up over the last 2 years to 157,000 subscribers. So it's just about halfway, almost exactly halfway to what we had before. And it looks like they're going to cancel us again.
Oh, my God.
Because now they have a new thing to go after us for. They're going after us for, quote-unquote, hate. So we violated their hate policy, which is all supposed to be about violence towards identified groups or whatever.
Right.
And of course, they're talking about LGBT.
Yep.
But it was based on a video where I reviewed that movie, Everything Everywhere All at Once, the horrible anti-Catholic film, and it was based on a LGBT premise. And it was funny because in the video I talk about our approach to LGBT is all about love. We love these folks enough to tell them this behavior harms them, harms their bodies, and it harms their souls.
You bet.
But that's hate. So that approach now is hate. I think, wow.
Yeah, you could see that coming, couldn't you?
Oh, yeah, you could, but for them to say it out loud on an issue like that,
I know.
That's the whole. So then they're going to, like, I guess we're an easier target because they haven't yet targeted, like, Focus on the Family, all the huge evangelical groups. Because that's their message, too. That, the
Right.
Went Out conferences, it's all about that.
It's the message of the church, universal,
Yeah.
whether the leaders rise up to that is a whole different issue.
Exactly. That's been not a small issue.
No. I'm just curious, where you might like to go relative to targeting for our listening audience here. What can we do? I was thinking, John, in the political sphere, in response to the wacky world that is quite apparent before us, you see the rising up of God's good folk, regular guys and regular gals, a kind of populist kind of movement, right? Mm-hmm. I'm wondering, do you sense a calling for the same within church circles? I have a book, What the Nation Will Follow, by a former general, and he's giving very practical militant strategies in the most positive connotation as to how to defend ourselves
as citizens, but what about as parishioners in Holy Mother Church?
And all that she believes, 2023 years and unchanging. What are some practical things that we can do? I'm just wondering whether the cry for that is even out there. I mean, other than apostolates like your own, obviously, you're a perfect, very much a byproduct of this kind of thinking of the sensus fidelium. But I'm kind of curious, you might have more of the pulse on this in your travels and whatnot. I don't know.
Well, definitely. I mean, the number one thing, obviously, is always prayer, but this is prayer and fasting. And this is the territory where the demons are too tough to kick out normally.
Yes.
There will be no real gain other than by fasting and prayer. I want to put them in reverse order only because the other one we don't do all the time.
Exactly.
Hardly ever. But in addition to that, I will hold aside all the spiritual helps and things we need to do. They're the most essential and actually the most important. But in addition to that, honestly, if the movements for like Valley, which a large portion of which are run by Catholics, could devote enough of their time to lobbying the bishops, it's a more important lobby than the politicians.
Yeah.
Because if they don't do that, the bishops, so we have at least, let's say America, there's a third of the bishops who are solidly on the other side.
Yep.
On the side of woke, whatever you want to call it.
Yep, I agree.
There's not quite a third, but there's about 25 bishops who are fairly good. In the mold, I'd say, of a John Paul II type.
Very good.
They are ready to, basically, they preach the truth.
Yes.
They want the truth. They love life, family, and so on.
Balanced in their theology and yet ready to defend.
Exactly.
Okay.
But then there's this whole swath in I don't even want to say the middle. They're all over the place.
Yep.
They are actually susceptible to pressure. And we've got so many examples who have they have given in to pressure to do the right thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's very rare.
Because
they get pressure on the other side.
This is fascinating that you have already divided things into threes, which I have constantly been telling people. That's the way it always breaks down institutionally or otherwise. You have a third that are virtually, simply not Catholic marauders. You have a third that are holding the fort, the saints amongst us, and, just really good men and women. And then you've got this big middle third, which I call the company man. And, and just to share a quick story, it was only a couple of weeks ago, I was out to lunch with a particular priest, and I did not know him whatsoever, really. I heard some sermons. He seemed safe, quote unquote. So we did a nice free-for-all 2-hour theological summit meeting over lunch, and I thought it was delightful. It went very well, I thought. Well, the next time I went to weekday mass at this particular church, I mean, shun is not the word. He virtually pretended he didn't know me. And I said, he then saw me at the same church on a Sunday after mass saying my prayers. And I was before the Sacred Heart of Jesus statue, and I said to him, Father, I had a great time the other day, and I hope you did too. And I just want you to know that I say regular prayers to Father Walter Cizik, who was exiled. and basically asking for fellowship and friendship through Mary, and you're at the top of that list. Yeah. And he says, well, I appreciate that, Tim. Well, the question remains, will I ever get to lunch number 2? Okay. And I was at lunch with another priest from a different diocese. This is last fall. And I was rattling off some basic straight-on truisms. And he said to me, yeah, you're free to say that. And I thought, boy, doesn't that hit the bullseye right there? Yeah. You're free to say that, Tim, and I'm not. So the question is, why aren't you? And this is where I went off in those thought-provoker questions. Why aren't you? Talk to us a little more about this lobby that you're talking about, and what is the whole role of the Chancery in all of this? Because we can't leave that Chancery off the radar.
No, I know. So here's one of the things that has happened. I won't name specific bishops because I don't want to get people in trouble. They were in trouble already. So,
yep.
But
me neither. Very prudent.
Typically what happens is this. A fairly good Catholic becomes a priest, then becomes a bishop because he's intelligent and whatever. And gets into the Chancery office and he wants to go along to get along. So he says, oh, well, let's work with this team that's here.
Yeah.
And the team is totally opposed to the faith, to everything that God wants to do. So it's like from a different religion.
Yep.
Because typically, in today's day and age, like John Paul II and Benedict said himself, there are the essentials that we have to focus on. And JP2 was so clear that when he talked to Father Mark, the greatest work on earth that he was doing was the battle for life.
Exactly.
To save children from abortion. It's the thing that Mother Teresa said would lead to nuclear war. It is the thing that Mother Teresa said was accounting for our poverty compared to India. Because we don't have the spiritual recognition of the child, and they did there. And so these are some of the real truths that we're totally oblivious to, we're missing.
Yep.
And yet, it's the Chanceries where you find the people who, this bishop comes in and says, okay, we're going to, be pro-life and do the faith and everything else, and encourage and all of a sudden it's like, oh, no, we're, oh, no, you don't want to be discriminatory like that.
We are church.
Exactly. And then what are we doing? Oh, we're doing social justice, of course. What is that?
Yeah.
Well, we're helping the poor. And the priest will say, oh, great, we're helping the poor.
Yeah.
What are we doing? Well, we're going out to the soup kitchen, but we're not doing the soup kitchen. We're providing the needle. We're providing the clean needle.
Oh my!
You might think, what do you mean the clean needle? Is that can't be for what I'm thinking?
Right.
For insulin? No.
Yeah.
So they're doing these very strange, non-Catholic things. What are they pushing? Well, we have to push the HPV vaccine because that's how to cure. Wait a minute. What is that saying? They're out to lunch. They're doing something totally non-Catholic, but it sounds Catholic. Oh, but Your Excellency, we don't want to show people that we hate the gays. We've got to reach out and love them.
Right.
Absolutely. That's such a great idea. So what are we doing for them? Well, we're welcoming them. We've gone out to all of the homosexual couples and invited them into the church, and we've told Joe to be the reader and Frank to be the server.
Yeah.
Who's serving with the little boy. He seems to like that very much. I'm like, no, what are you doing?
Yeah, and let us not sin of omission for sure. I know not politically correct, but one, we live in an age where one cannot criticize women. Okay, it's like, but I always have this image of the woman that asked for the head of John the Baptist in every generation. Okay, she's fair game for analysis, like men are as well. Let's be equal about this. And I bring up the point coming from the 1970s at a Jesuit college and university, graduate and undergraduate. all of this stuff, that was all part of my whole formation, okay, in theology, going back to that time. And I found it fascinating. And Father Ripperger recently in one of his videos was talking about this time warp, that people are stuck in from that time. I'm a tail end of the baby boomer, right? Baby boom. And so are most of our bishops, right? And so they were all educated during that time, which was precisely the time that St. John Paul II was up against the world with Cardinal Odie as his right-hand arm, trying to defend Holy Mother Church relative to a whole host of issues. And he had the American Catholic hierarchy, the Land O'Lakes Agreement, or that baloney. Okay, he had virtually the whole American hierarchy against him. And yet we wonder how we got to the place that we're in right now. I used to come home to Mom and Dad and I'd say, I don't know what they're teaching down there, but it ain't Catholic.
Well, how in the world do they do this? And this is phenomenal today. I mean, the church that they're talking about doesn't exist.
John, let us hang in suspense on that one for part 2 of our interview a month from now, first Saturday. We'll resume our book review with Father William Casey. You shall stand firm. This is WQPH Radio 89.3 FM. Well, in our last session, Father William Casey doesn't mince words. He was laying out lukewarm Catholicism as the culprit of our time, and to quickly summarize, he said, call it lukewarm Catholicism, call it cafeteria Catholicism, call it theological modernism, call it liberal American Catholicism, call it rationalism or moral relativism or whatever else you choose to call it, but know this, it's a fatal disease, it's a killer, and it ultimately leads to the ruin of souls. Relative to very much what's at work today in the New World Order cabal, don't you think they don't have a concept of religion coming soon? Not to a theater near you, but perhaps your very home? And it's the religion of man, the secular religion of man. He says, the idea that one religion is as good as another and that one savior is as good as the next is the deadly error of our time. Why do you think that is, ladies and gentlemen? Because people don't know the Catholic faith. How many Catholics have you encountered? Regular guy or regular gal Catholics who were quick and ready to do what St. Peter told us we must do, give an account of the faith that is in you, for the devil is prowling around seeking the ruin of souls, the very title of this chapter. So, lukewarm Catholicism, Pope Pius V said all of the sin and problems of the world are caused by lukewarm Catholics. So Father Kelly more than suggests start building and rebuilding your spiritual life. He says, be faithful to daily meditation and spiritual reading. Start praying again, for there is no time to lose. Get on your knees before the Blessed Sacrament every chance you get and go to daily Mass if you can. Quickly do penance to invoke the mercy of God and add the Chaplet of Divine Mercy to your daily prayer schedule. This is critically important. Do not put it off, and do not count on other people to do this for you. There is no time to lose, as our time may be short now. What is wrong with the church? He asks. We are what is wrong with the church. Generally speaking, we do not take seriously the call to holiness. We do not take up the call to be saints seriously. It's time to light the candles and stop cursing the darkness. Let's get this ship back on course. Look around you. Do you really need proof or evidence that might convince you that God is a low priority in your life and your family? Is your daily life characterized by spiritual sloth, time wasted and stolen from prayer, and addiction to television, internet, gaming, or social media? Do you tolerate sin? Are there habitual sins you have grown content with, even venial sins? Is your life dominated by human respect, a compromise with the world, and silence in the face of what you know is wrong? Sin, error, and evil. When you hear someone slander the faith, the church, or Christ himself in your presence, when you are at home, at work, or with your friends, do you speak out to defend the faith, or do you keep your mouth shut like a coward? Do you let your kids stay home when they ought to be at Mass on weekends? Do you stay home yourself, content to break the third commandment? Does your Catholic faith go down the tubes as soon as you step into a voting booth? Do you cast your lot for the culture of death or the gospel of life? Do you vote for pro-abortion political candidates and party platforms that advocate and advance every anti-life, anti-Christian, and anti-God position? Do you think God does not see? Are you a bad example to your kids? Is there a lack of charity at home? Is there fighting, arguing, foul language, and gossiping? Do you really live the virtue of chastity yourself? Are you chaste in mind and body? Is there a spiritual dysfunctional idolatry that whirls around you and that you refuse to see? Does the best of your time, your talents, your efforts, your energy always seem to be expended in the chase of money, possessions, wealth, honors, recognition, physical appearance, and sports? And speaking of sports, when a ball team is having a poor season and getting kicked all over the field, the coach will typically hold a press conference and tell everybody that the team is in the middle of a rebuilding year. It is always a rebuilding year, isn't it? So let's start rebuilding right now. He says, when I come to speak at a parish or conference or put words onto paper, I never do so to tell people what they want to hear. I come to tell the truth, as the truth will set them free. People have had enough of those teachers who, as St. Paul said, will tickle their ears. There is no time for that now. I am here to tell you the truth, to light a flame within you, to get you fired up. If you say you love the church but can't get fired up now, you never will. Something is wrong, and I'm going to ask you to do everything in your power to change it. Let every man and every woman who loves Christ and his church stand up, speak up, and rise up right now to demand an end to the scandals in the church and an end to lukewarm Catholicism. Now there is a breath of fresh air, holy air. Father William Casey just lays it on the platter the way it should have been for 4 decades. And better late than never. Did you ever wonder why I call my show Talk Catholic? I always refer to Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz clicking her red heels at the end, discovering that she had the power all along within herself. His name is Jesus. And all she had to do was ask instead of getting lost and going down all kinds of yellow brick road. No, we can come home quickly and rebuild the church quickly. Just go to our Lord through the sacraments of our church. But also, in order to probably do that, you got to know what they are. And I will just quickly share that in all of my years of experience, life experience, and ministry experience, those Catholic families today that are full of life, vibrant and faithful, never stop praying, number one. In other words, they had children, that was first and foremost, and they didn't stop them from praying at about 12 years of age. It all continued, and it still does. I'm thinking of one great holy friend that has 6 children that are anywhere from 16 to 26, and they're interested, alive, and reading about and praying always their Catholic faith. They have lots of fun, and they're inquisitive, asking the questions and challenging each other. And that's what your kitchen table has got to become. And then that lukewarmness will go out the window. But don't think that you're going to get it, that spark of the Holy Spirit from the outside communist cabal. They want mediocrity, sameness, absolutely diminish any striving for excellence. No, competition, forget that. Everybody's got to be dumbed down in the communist playbook so the state can control you, every part of you. Fact is, lukewarmness turns you into a dead duck. This is how it's been for way too long. But good news still, the Holy Spirit can light a fire tomorrow. How about today? This is WQPH Radio 89.3 FM, continuing to light Easter fires to change the world and the church. God bless. Let your light shine. That is what it's all about here at WQPH Radio 89.3 FM. But we need to hear your story. You want your voice to be his voice. That is making the faith known to others. Please, my number is 877-625-3727. Tim Kilcoyne, TalkCatholic.com. St. Mother Teresa told us, your ministry is your work right where you are. Grab on to this microphone. God bless.